This depicts the layout of the erstwhile Soviet Union. Now, here's a portrayal of contemporary Russia. Noticeably, what was once an expansive empire has now splintered into numerous territories and states. In Putin's perspective, this is the lost territory that should inherently be part of Russia. He's gone on record stating that the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the foremost geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century. He voiced his vexation about the USSR's dispersion, noting many of our compatriots now live outside Russia's borders. All this points to an ambition to reclaim that bygone Russian influence. On February 24, 2022, a significant revelation of this aspiration emerged when Vladimir Putin, the head of the Russian state, initiated the incursion into Ukraine, marking a historic turning point. Judging by his moves, Ukraine seems to be a chapter in a grander narrative, a narrative I've been trying to unravel over recent weeks. Though Putin refutes ambitions of reconstructing the Soviet realm, he's previously contradicted his statements, especially regarding Russian military endeavors. It might sound extreme, but given a large-scale assault in this age, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. What's required for the rumored Soviet resurgence under Putin? As we delve deeper, it becomes evident that the strategic elements may already be aligned, and the methods Putin might employ could surprise many. Observe that several ex-Soviet states remain under significant Kremlin influence and might not offer significant resistance if they were to face an invasion. Take Belarus, for instance. Just prior to the Ukraine incursion, Russian forces displayed their might near the Belarus-Ukraine frontier. There's speculation that Alexander Lukashenko, often termed as the last dictator in Europe, deployed forces in tandem with Putin. Having been in power for nearly 3 decades, Lukashenko admitted to missiles from Belarus targeting Ukraine. It's not startling, given Belarus's close economic ties to the Kremlin and the peculiar but amicable history between both leaders. Given the extensive UN and EU sanctions due to Lukashenko's breaches of human rights to maintain his grip, Putin stands as Lukashenko's primary ally. Historically, the Kremlin has financially rescued Belarus and provided military and monetary support to quash large-scale demonstrations following the controversial 2020 Belarusian elections, which saw Lukashenko triumph once more. The dynamics between them clearly highlight a dependency, which isn't coincidental. Evidence of this is Putin's past proposition for Belarus to reintegrate with Russia. Although the offer was declined, the refusal holds little weight, especially considering the approximately 30,000 Russian troops stationed in Belarus. Putin's justification for his specific military operation in Ukraine was the significant ethnic Russian populace. A similar rationale could potentially be applied in the context of Belarus. Even in the absence of a direct takeover, Belarus's present condition illustrates the kind of influence Putin might envision for Ukraine, a country that, while technically sovereign, is largely swayed by the Kremlin. This could be thought of as a soft takeover, a strategy that might already be at play in other former Soviet states such as Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Armenia. Examining a Eurasian map reveals Kazakhstan's entire northern boundary aligning with Russia, marking it as the largest territorial interface with the Russian Federation. A full-blown assault here, similar to Ukraine's scenario, might be untenable, stretching Russian forces too thinly, especially with other ongoing confrontations. Understanding this, Putin likely doesn't aim for direct confrontations. Instead, it seems probable he'd broker deals for territories, leveraging his position. A recent incident supports this hypothesis. Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev sought aid from Russia amidst protests earlier this year, instigated by long-standing autocratic governance and alleged governmental misdeeds. With the situation intensifying, about 2,500 troops were dispatched to suppress the upheavals, with a significant portion airlifted from Russia. This military aid might become a negotiation point, allowing Russia to stake its claim over additional northern Kazakhstan territories. It's noteworthy to mention that parts of northern Kazakhstan are already claimed by Russia. Given such reliance on external partners to quell disturbances, Kazakhstan may find itself yielding to Putin's desires, much like we've observed with the leadership in Belarus. Meanwhile, Turkmenistan is also undergoing peculiar political shifts. Before diving into recent election outcomes, it's essential to highlight that Turkmenistan isn't a hereditary monarchy. Bear that in mind, as we see that a staggering 73% of votes reportedly went to Sardar Berdimuhamedow, coincidentally, the offspring of the former leader, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow. While I'm not implying any electoral misconduct, it's noteworthy that Putin swiftly sent congratulatory remarks post-election, deeming it an impressive triumph. Given Turkmenistan's history of autocratic governance since the Soviet Union's dissolution, it's a breeding ground for potential uprisings. This recent dynastic transition of power might instigate further unrest. Putin might offer a supporting hand, reminiscent of his approach with Kazakhstan, or he might exert economic pressure. Interestingly, signs of the latter strategy are emerging. A recent agreement linking Turkmenistan's financial future with the Russian Federation has been inked, termed the Program of Economic Cooperation. It spans from 2021 to 2023 and holds paramount significance for Turkmenistan's economic revitalization. The partnership, which emphasizes the exchange of resources like natural gas, appears to be functioning as anticipated. This is hinted at by Turkmenistan's reluctance to openly criticize Russia's moves in Ukraine. Evidently, Putin seems to have a long-term strategy at play. Shifting our gaze to the Caucasus region, predominantly consisting of Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and segments of southern Russia, there are intriguing developments, especially through Putin's lens. Armenia and Azerbaijan are deeply embroiled in a dispute over the Nagorno-Karabakh enclave, a territory not globally recognized and lying within both nations, but claimed by neither. Russia might seize this discord as justification to deploy forces under the pretext of resolution assistance. It's worth recalling that Russia brokered the 1994 peace accord that initially tempered the hostilities. Given the lingering tension, this offers a plausible front. Moreover, aligning Armenia wouldn't be too challenging for Putin, considering their endorsement of the 2014 Crimea annexation, contrary to Azerbaijan's stance, which parallels Nagorno-Karabakh to Crimea's association with Ukraine. Another factor making Armenia more amenable to a sizable Russian troop presence is the existing Russian military base, situated in Gyumri, offering the Kremlin an immediate entryway. However, a logistical hiccup arises. Armenia is geographically isolated from Russia, bordered by Georgia and Azerbaijan. To access Armenia, Putin would need to traverse Georgia, a country already familiar with Russian incursions. Historically, there's an intriguing parallel. The 2008 Russia-Georgia conflict mirrors the commencement of the ongoing Ukrainian conflict. Russia justified its involvement by asserting support for separatists in South Ossetia and Abkhazia, regions seeking independence from Georgia. Similar to Donetsk and Luhansk in Ukraine, the situation escalated when Georgia voiced aspirations to become a NATO member. As a result, Russia leaned towards endorsing the separatist regions, leading to military intervention after Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili deployed forces to resist the Russian-backed rebels. The conflict spanned a brief 5 days, with Russian forces halting a mere 48 kilometers from Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, before initiating ceasefire discussions. Today, Russian military presence persists in these territories, accompanied by Kremlin-supported separatist factions. Considering this backdrop, apprehensions abound regarding Moldova potentially sharing a similar trajectory, particularly in light of its contested region, Transnistria. This unrecognized pro-Russian territory stirs concern due to the significant military presence. To provide context, Putin has stationed approximately 1,500 to 2,000 soldiers in Transnistria and an estimated militia of 10,000 in Tiraspol. In contrast, Moldova's active duty forces total roughly 7,500. The recurring motif is evident: sufficient internal discord within several ex-Soviet nations provides an entry point. The present might be when Putin capitalizes on this, yet he faces substantial hurdles ahead. Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania are unique in this geopolitical puzzle. These countries are fully fledged NATO members, and they dutifully adhere to the guidelines, including committing 2% of their GDP towards defense. As a part of NATO's collective defense mechanism, any aggression on one member is deemed an assault on all. With NATO encompassing 30 countries, including the military heavyweights, the US any offensive action against these nations would invite the wrath of this alliance. While Russia boasts of 900,000 active military personnel, nearly a fifth of this force is preoccupied with the Ukrainian situation. Activating forces in other regions like Moldova, Georgia, and Armenia would spread their capabilities thin. There's always the shadow of nuclear confrontation. Russia possesses the globe's most substantial cache of nuclear warheads. However, NATO members possess formidable nuclear arsenals themselves. Resorting to nuclear warfare promises mutual devastation and poses existential threats. Despite Putin's warnings of unparalleled repercussions if interfered with in Ukraine, launching a nuclear offensive would be a Pyrrhic victory at best. If Putin ever contemplates liberating the Baltic states, the shared borders with Latvia and Estonia would be advantageous, as would the Belarus-Lithuania frontier. However, any troop movement would be promptly detected, making direct conflict with NATO a precarious gambit. It's plausible that Putin is merely gauging the Western reaction through his actions in Ukraine. Putin might be meticulously plotting maneuvers in the countries we've touched upon, and while it appears probable that he'd target non-NATO states, the outcome remains uncertain. If he aspires to resurrect the Soviet Union, confronting NATO becomes inevitable. However, there's a pressing concern. Can Russia sustain these ventures given the mounting sanctions? Russia's financial safety net comprises $300 billion in foreign currency and gold reserves. This kitty encompasses $132 billion in gold, stashed within the Bank of Russia's vaults, and foreign currency stored both domestically and in sanction-reluctant nations like China. When juxtaposed against the $62 billion Russia allocated for defense in 2021 and the costs of the Ukraine intervention, the financial situation seems tenable. An assessment from a Ukrainian think tank suggests Russia might have incurred about $7 billion for the initial 5 days of the war. Notably, Russia's military hardware is majorly home-produced, utilizing local resources. Hence, even with the ruble's volatility, Putin might manage the fiscal aspects of these endeavors. The real question is, what extents is Putin ready to reach to realize his ambitions? While we can only hope for peace, I'd be eager to hear your insights. Drop them below, and thanks for tuning in. Catch you in the next one.